This is for parents, especially parents of children in schools like West Hartford, concerned about the quality of the school and the quality of schooling for their kids. I am Mark Stewart Greenstein. I am back from a West Hartford school board meeting where for the second straight meeting, SEL was prominently on the agenda. It's unfortunate that SEL has even made it to the agenda, but we do have to discuss it at this point. The parents who spoke so eloquently early on, I want to reiterate their desires. Their eloquence was high. I wish I could repeat it, but Karen and Linda and one other woman who followed, I forget your name, I apologize. 3 phrases that came out, which we can all do. From Karen, respect for one another is paramount. From Linda, the phrase acceptance, kindness, compassion, and curiosity about one another. All wonderful phrases. And the other that came up, consent. We should embrace all of them. I want people to recognize you don't need a curriculum for any of this. Good respect, acceptance of others, compassion for others, curiosity about one another. This is what is taught routinely at home. Home, where students have 3/4 of their waking hours compared to school. We've been doing this up until recently quite well at home. It's called civilizing young girls and boys with decency. It's generally learned at home. It's reinforced at school. SEL, at its best, is trying to reinforce a commonality that should already be there. And if it's not, if you have a different sort of level of decency because you were raised in a Muslim home versus a Cuban home versus a Scandinavian home, we shouldn't be using school to enmesh into one a culture that in America is meant to be multifaceted. As long as you're decent to one another, we have the Americana for good learning, and we don't have to plague kids with somebody else's studies, some bureaucrat's values. And since it has come up, skin color. Skin color's irrelevant, but SEL, when taught in the wrong hands, starts to make skin color and race supremely relevant. We should be over this. That's what Martin Luther King wanted. That's what, until about a decade ago, we were on the cusp of having. And we still generally do, except for some loudmouths in the media and some, unfortunately, powerful politicians. We have in our society nearly race-blind treatment. Look at the rate of intermarriage. Look at the probably 98% rate of approval for intermarriage. Okay? In 40 years, what a colossal change. Common sense tells us that we are so much better off than what SEL in the wrong hands, and we saw a book last night with the very wrong hands, teaching stupid things, untruths to start with, about how babies are identified. Please beware when a study quoted, for example, 2 weeks earlier by the assistant superintendent for curriculum in West Hartford, when they say the research shows, I get very, very skeptical. You should too. The research deserves some investigation. Well, I did. And some of the research from Dr. Vicinius's sorted stuff is based on, sorted, S-O-R-T-E-D, is based on Brazil. Others are based on, yes, America, published 40 years ago based on studies from 45 to 60 years ago. Okay, 50 years ago, especially in the South, we were enmeshed in still a Jim Crow era. So, very different from today, and blinders need to come off. Look, in evaluating things, Please, research from strangers versus observation with your neighbors. Observation of your own, a lot more credible. Conclusions based on research versus your own common sense. Again, common sense, more credible. And I will conclude with a solution, and I did try to raise it this evening. Respect and consent, two words that came out of the hearing last hour. Two words at the meeting, respect and consent. And the solution is allowing parent choice. Within the same building, you could have different regimens for how you want students to learn. Parents whose students are in one wing could have the SEL that's being presented to them. Parents who want to be traditional, content with the education that's been quite good up until recently, they could be another wing of a building. In cities like West Hartford, where there's multiple schools and busing back and forth no matter what, we have an easy way to learn by choice, by consent of the parents, not by clashing, which ultimately puts kids in a back and forth, probably confused at times state that's unnecessary. I'm Mark Stewart.